You're on, Maxine.
We're on, huh?
Yep.
So, hi
Like it or
Malcolm,
not.
and hi Maya. So I'll explain Maya's presence as our wonderful guest. Here we are with another episode of the Many Shades of Green Zoomcast version, where we mix up our greens to inform and encourage you to take action to protect the environment. So we need you all to pick a shade of green and raise your eco consciousness.
And what is our
Uh,
website? What is our website? So
what is
people,
whose website?
our website, Malcolm
Our
Presents.
website.
MalcolmPresents.com.
MalcolmPresents.com and the ManyShadesOfGreen.com, and then we'll have Maya give all her information.
And by the way,
So,
you can go see earlier shows. Take it away, Max.
okay. Our guest today is Maya Van Rossum, who dedicated her life to being the voice of the Delaware River. She has taken on industry, government, and even the U.S. Army. And that's to prevent harm to the river and the river communities and environments that she so bravely champions. She's currently working to empower individuals across the nation to stand up for their environmental rights by pioneering the Green Amendment movement. She's written a book called The Green Amendment, and in, I believe, 2013, Maya and her organization achieved a major victory in a landmark case, Robinson Township Delaware Riverkeeper Network versus the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania's been in the news a lot lately. The case was decided by the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, and it's a constitutional, it revived the state's long ignored constitutional environmental rights amendment, empowering it to protect the people's right to pure water, clean air, and a healthy environment. So Maya, you're the Delaware Riverkeeper and you fight hard to maintain a healthy river. You're the guiding force for the Green Amendment movement, and you have said the environmental laws and government officials focus more on permitting pollution rather than preventing it. And certainly that needs to change. So what is the Green, welcome to the show, number one. And it's good to have you here. And
Well,
what is,
I was just going to say, I'm just thrilled to be here to talk with you. You have such a magnificent show and you cover so many important issues. And I'm just glad to be back and be able to talk with you.
you're a friend of the show. We love
Yes.
having friends of the show to back up, to give us status updates of all the great work they're doing. So with that, the Green Amendment, what inspired you to start the process and use legal and political systems on the state level to accomplish this goal of, you know, having people have the right to have clean air and land and water?
So, people learn throughout the entirety of their lives from elementary school on about these really powerful constitutional rights that they have that are recognized and protected in the Bill of Rights section of our state and federal constitutions. Things like the right to free speech and freedom of religion, private property rights, and certainly we hear all the time these days about the right to bear arms. And people are pretty shocked when I bring it to the forefront of their mind that while those fundamentally important rights are recognized and protected at the highest constitutional level possible across our nation, the right of the people to drink clean water and breathe clean air, to be entitled to a stable climate and healthy environments, those are rights that while we hold them and cherish them in our hearts as fundamentally important human rights, they are not given that same highest constitutional recognition and protection. And it's quite shocking because those other fundamental rights are certainly important, right? They're important political and civil rights that are in the Bill of Rights section of our Constitution. But the fact that these fundamental rights that, access to clean water and clean air, for example, that we need to survive, to actually live, are not protected in the Bill of Rights section of our state and federal constitutions is quite shocking to people.
Yeah, one break-in just yesterday. I think it was the mayor of Flint, Michigan, was arraigned or arrested for the pollution of the water that they had that killed many people.
Was it the governor or the
Was the
mayor?
governor? I'm not sure if it's the governor or the mayor. Might have been the governor.
Yeah.
You might be right.
And in that case, right, when we're talking about Flint, it is so blatant how government officials, right, didn't just fail in their duty to protect people in terms of their health and their safety and their water, but actually were, in some instances, knowingly proactive in preventing people from having that safe, clean water that they need to live. And while there certainly are criminal laws in situations like that that can be brought to bear, all too often when our government officials act knowingly and intentionally in ways that sacrifice our water, our air, our environments, and our climate by giving them literally to industry to pollute and contaminate in order to advance their profits to the detriment and the sacrifice of the people, there's not really anything that the people can do to hold them accountable, because they're usually doing it in compliance with state and federal laws or their interpretation of those state and federal laws. But if you add to the Bill of Rights section of the Constitution the right to pure water, clean air, a stable climate, and healthy environments, then when those government officials behave in a way that sacrifice your ability to have clean, healthy, safe water, air, soils, and environments, you can actually use the Constitution to bring them to account, right? To hold them accountable for sacrificing the people for the benefit of industry, just like when government behaves in ways that infringe on your right to free speech. You can bring a constitutional challenge to stop that behavior by government officials. Well, now that same highest power can be brought to bear for the environment.
Very interesting.
Right.
All right.
This is a state level that you're working on primarily. Are you also working on a federal level that I don't, that you, that you're working to do that as well? It seems like you're going state by state, and now you're working in New Mexico, correct? I know you did Pennsylvania, and did you do, was it Montana? I mean, which are the states that have it now?
Yeah.
And now you're working on some new states, but how does that work in terms of maybe a federal, way to do this?
Yeah. So, so people know I'm still the Delaware Riverkeeper and leader of the Delaware Riverkeeper Network, but there is now this new national movement and organization called Green Amendments for the Generations, which is about advancing constitutional environmental rights amendments, what I call green amendments, because you have to fulfill a certain definition in order to get that title, so to speak. At this point, and you are right, I am intentionally going state by state. That is a strategic choice. Right now, there are only 2 states that have this highest constitutional recognition and protection of environmental rights. That's Pennsylvania and Montana. And each of those states have a story for how that came to be and what they are accomplishing. And you mentioned a little bit that in Pennsylvania, I, in my role as the Delaware Riverkeeper and the Delaware Riverkeeper Network, were fundamentally important in the life and the strength of Pennsylvania's Green Amendment. But other than those 2, we don't have environmental rights across the nation. Now, in the United States of America, right, the states have a lot of power when it comes to environmental protection, and so does the federal government. There's really literally like shared power, and there are areas that the states are primarily responsible for, areas the federal government's primarily responsible for. And for the most part, in most instances, while the federal government might set sort of like the base level, the minimum that you have to provide as a state for environmental protection, states can do more. They can do it better. They can provide higher protections. And so they have a lot of power. And so the idea is to go state by state by state and get these Bill of Rights provisions to give that highest protection and strength at the state level and get really meaningful change, because state constitutional amendments are much more accessible than a federal constitutional amendment, right? So we're gonna get that power and protection in that more at the state level, again, because it's powerful, it's important, it's achievable, right? It's accessible. But the other thing is, our step 2 in this strategy is to get that federal constitutional Green Amendment, because there is a lot of power in the federal government. And we need a federal Green Amendment as well to hold the Congress and the president and the EPA and other government officials to account when they violate our rights to a healthy environment. So we do ultimately need a federal green amendment. The thing is, to get a federal green amendment, you need the support of 3/4 of the states. So you have to go forth and organize and educate and advocate state by state to get people to be aware of and supportive of this idea if you want to get a federal green amendment. Well, what better way to do that than to advocate and educate and get them to support a green amendment at the state level? And then they are perfectly primed and postured to support a federal green amendment when we get to that point. At this point, right, we have, there are those green amendments in Pennsylvania and Montana, but Green Amendments for the Generations has inspired the proposal to have green amendments in 6 other states: New York, New Jersey, Maryland, West Virginia, Vermont, and this past year in New Mexico. And we are anticipating in the coming weeks or months a green amendment proposal in Maine, in Oregon, and in Washington. And there are other states that are coming on board or getting increasingly active on this idea as well. The state of Delaware, the state of Connecticut, there's interest in Kentucky and Hawaii. This morning, I was just reaching out to folks interested in Florida, and more states all the time. That's not to say that it's easy, and it's not to say that, you know, getting a proposal means that you're going to get the amendment. It's going to take different levels of time depending on the state, but it is really powerful that people are recognizing that there is something missing in our state and federal constitutions and in the way we think about and protect environmental rights, and that we can fill that gap by passing constitutional green amendments that recognize and protect the rights, the enforceable constitutional rights of all people, regardless of race, ethnicity, religion, income, or generation, to pure water, clean air, a stable climate, and healthy environments.
Yeah, Maya, do we have a constitutional right? Is there a constitutional right written in the Constitution itself that we have a right to clean air, clean water, etc.?
In the federal constitution, no, only Pennsylvania and Montana have this. Now, there are a lot of states, 46 to be precise, that talk about the environment in their constitution, some of them very eloquently, but they don't recognize and protect the rights to clean water, clean air, and healthy environments as fundamental, enforceable, inalienable, inherent rights, right? So you have really pretty language that might say it's the policy of the state, that people have this important right to clean water. But if you can't actually enforce it, I don't care how flowery and pretty your language is, it doesn't really do much good. And there are a lot of states that in their Bill of Rights, they don't protect the right to clean water and clean air, but they protect the right to fish, hunt, and trap. Well, that is certainly a fine and powerful right for many people, but it's not the same thing as making sure that you have a right to clean water and clean air and healthy environments, right? So there are only 2 states that did it the right way and had the right placement, meaning in the Bill of Rights section of the Constitution, and that's what we're working to remedy.
Right.
The question
I have a question on, do you work with any of the organizations like National Resource Defense or Earth Justice? Do they work with you on this as well? Or is this something that they're a part of? I mean, how do you gather all the legal people to do this and to get to all these states to try to do this? Seems like a huge undertaking.
Well, the truth is it's a pretty simple and basic idea, but it actually is quite complex to implement. And there are very, very few people who actually fully understand it and get it right. And there are lots of lawyers, really smart lawyers, and I'm often shocked and surprised what might come out of their mouth when they hear about this idea and start to talk about it. So, you know, I really, in every state where a green amendment is advancing or somebody is hoping to advance it, I really ask them, please work in partnership with myself and Green Amendments for the Generations. Let us help you to get a green amendment in your state constitution with the right language. Let us help you anticipate the challenges that you're going to face and head them off, and really have the best opportunity to get this done in the near term. Now, in every state where we work, we develop partnerships and coalitions. I don't pretend that I'm going to walk into every state across the nation and make a constitutional amendment happen. That really has to come for the people. But I have a body of knowledge and experience and understanding that is an important part of the partnership.
Right.
So I go into states with the message. I try to inspire people to understand and want to pursue this idea. And then I ask them, can we please work in partnership to make it happen? You bring, your time and talent and connections, and let me bring my knowledge and experience, and let us work together to make this happen.
Well, I'll tell you.
And so every state is a different collaboration, right? So, in some states, any number of organizations that you might mention might be involved in one state, but not another state. But at the national level, and in terms of this idea, it is Green Amendments for the Generations that is advancing it. And, if other organizations, national, state, or local, want to come on board, that's great. I just ask them, please come on board in partnership. Don't try to co-opt an idea that you actually don't fully understand.
Right. I was thinking about that. I mean, now there's also the Juliana versus US case, which is a children's trust.
Mhm.
Are you working with that, or are you involved at all, or do you, speak to them in any way, shape, or form?
So our Children's Trust is a fabulous organization, and they have a really powerful vision, but their concept and idea is different. They are not mutually exclusive. There's synergistic benefits if they are successful. But what they're really trying to do at the federal level, but also in different states, is they are trying to take pre-existing legal principles or laws or even constitutional language and trying to get state and federal courts to read into that language the right to a healthy environment, or the duty of government agencies to raise the bar in terms of protection, usually with a focus on climate or the atmosphere. Even if they're successful, though, the benefits and the values is much more focused than what you get from a Green Amendment. In terms of a Green Amendment, we are protecting all aspects of the environment: the water, the air, the atmosphere, the climate, all the environments, the flora, the fauna. We are creating individual enforceable rights of all people. And we are also putting in place a duty on all government officials at every level of government in a state to protect the natural resources for the benefit of both present and future generations.
Right.
And I really respect what our Children's Trust is doing, but they are trying to convince judges and lawyers and others to read into language something which which often is not explicitly there. And what I really say with it, and if they're successful, they get a line of protection that's really powerful, but they don't get the broad brush protection that we, all the people, need, right? So again, there's powerful benefit, but there's more that needs to be done. With the Green Amendment, we not only cover all the natural resources, we not only cover all government officials at all level of government in the state, and have generational protections and important environmental justice protections that come to bear. But we are also not trying to convince a judge to read into existing language something that may not clearly or explicitly be there. We are saying to the judges, we are saying to the legislators, to all government officials, this is what our expectation is. We have an inalienable right to pure water, clean air, a stable climate, and healthy environments. We have a right to the environmental, cultural, and healthful values of the environment. You government officials have a duty to conserve, protect, and maintain those natural resources for the benefit of all the people, including the flora, the fauna, the climate, the water, the air. And so we're not going to have to convince you to interpret the fact that we should have a right to a healthy environment. We're telling you explicitly in the Constitution. So when we come before you in the courts, or when we come to the halls of the Capitol to convince you to do the right thing, it's clearly laid out, right? And there's a lot less debate, and there's a lot less trying to convince people to read language the way we would hope they would read it. So
Right.
again,
Right.
different approach, values and benefits to both. And but I really value the Green Amendment approach. There's also often people ask about the rights of nature. Again, valuable concept, but different, not mutually exclusive, synergistic benefits, but it is fundamentally different. And I actually have a whole fact sheet on talking about our children's trust, the youth climate litigation, rights of nature, the Green New Deal, and the Green Amendment. And people say, don't you want to change it from the Green Amendment because of confusion with the Green New Deal? Look, my book and our concept was out there first. The Green New Deal came later. And so kind of that ship sailed.
Yeah.
Maya, I think you need to run for Congress.
Yeah.
You have a powerful passion that I would love to see on the floor versus like what some of them are there now. But I can see why this group called the Donuts wrote a song with your name in the title, the Maya Van Rossum's Blues. And what is that about? And how did that even happen? Because I love stuff like this,
Well,
what's the story behind it?
So it's really interesting. I didn't know about the song when it was written and when it was put out there. I learned about it like 2 years later. Somebody sent it to me, and look, I try not to be full of myself, right?
Mm.
To be an environmental advocate, like you have to have a little bit of ego, but I always make sure I check my ego at the door, and that it really is, when I do my work, it's about protecting the earth, it's about protecting the Delaware River, and about protecting the people. It's not about me. So I always try to check my ego at the door, like I said. So I very sheepishly wrote them an email. I looked them up and I said, I don't want to sound self-important, but is there any chance that this song is named after me? Because it seemed odd that they wouldn't have told me. And they wrote back and said, yes, it is. And actually, while the title of the song is Maya Van Rossum's Blues, if you actually listen to the song, nowhere in the song is my name mentioned. But the song is about I think the character that they're talking about, the person they're talking about, is me. They just don't say the name. And years ago we had a devastating oil spill. 165,000 gallons of heavy crude oil spilled in the Delaware River. And it was horrifying. It was devastating. And the impacts are still being felt today. And I, of course, in my role as the Delaware Riverkeeper, was, quick to be out on the scene. It happened literally over Thanksgiving Day weekend. It was actually the first Thanksgiving after my mom had passed away. So it was already an incredibly difficult time. And so to not have my mother, and then to see my beautiful Delaware River and all the natural resources and critters so devastated, was just a real, but I was out there taking my pictures and pressing the government to be more accountable, because they were not doing enough, and they were not giving people access to the information and to what was going on. So I was doing my advocacy as the Delaware Riverkeeper, trying to fight the good fight to make sure that we had the best cleanup possible, and that the responsible parties were the ones paying for it, not the taxpayers. And I guess somewhere along the way, the donuts must have read my tale in any number of news articles, and, crafted this song, which is about the oil spill, and its impacts, and holding the responsible parties responsible. So it was an honor, and it was cool.
Yeah, it's cool. It is cool
yeah.
To have, and I love the
And
name
it's
of
a
the
good
group.
song. I just want you to know, it's a really, like, when you listen to the song, it's a really catchy song. Like, my kids put it on my playlist. They have it on theirs. Like, it's a good song.
There you go. We
Yeah.
got to go check it out, everybody. Go to, I guess, one of the platforms, or Apple, or
Yeah.
whichever.
If you type in the
Spotify?
Donuts
Or
and Maya
YouTube,
Van
probably.
Rossum's Blues, you'll find it. Yeah, on YouTube. Yeah, they
YouTube.
have a video. It's really cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then download it. Like I said, you can get it on your playlist.
I'm going to do that right after.
A question, how are you funded? Are you funded privately? Any government support or Delaware support? Or basically it's all private funds?
Yeah, so both my organizations, the Delaware Riverkeeper Network and Green Amendments for the Generations, they're both nonprofit organizations that really depend upon private donations and competitive grants from foundations. I don't take money from, I don't take big bucks from industry. If you have a little local watershed association, which gets, some business or corporation to donate $100 to support the chemicals for, the monitoring that they're doing with us, that's no big deal. But, that's a drop in the bucket. But really, I don't take donations from business corporations and industry, not because it would ever impact how hard I would fight for the river or how hard I would fight for environmental rights, but because all I really have is my reputation and people knowing, whether they know me personally or read about me in the paper, understanding that no matter whether they agree with me or disagree with me on a position I'm taking to protect the river or protect the earth, they always know and can believe that I'm taking that position or implementing that strategy because I believe it's what is right for the river. It's what is right for the earth and our natural resources. And they can never go back and say, she gets money from, DuPont or Exxon or, any of those other corporations. That's why she's taking that position that I don't agree with, because she's doing it for the money. Again, people don't have to agree with everything I do. I'm usually out there on the point. I am always fighting the good fight, pressing the envelope to get the best protections for our river, for our natural resources, and for our people. But there still may be times when people don't understand why I'm doing what I'm doing, why, I might have settled one of our pieces of litigation versus going down another path. And it's just important to me that even if they don't agree, that they never think that I did it because I was selling out the river or the earth. I don't do that. So I don't take the money, so nobody ever has to doubt my motivation.
Yeah, excuse me for a moment. Where would people get in touch with you to find out, number one, more information about your organization, and number two, possibly to give you some contributions, some donations? Because it sounds like you're doing a wonderful job and a well-needed job, especially not getting politics into this, but especially since the EPA has been downgraded so much during the last 4 years.
Yeah, well, I really appreciate your asking, and you were right. But, the interesting thing is, I just really want to make clear, this Green Amendment movement and this recognition that, our current system of environmental laws is all about permitting and managing pollution and degradation, not preventing it. And that's part of the problem. That started way before, Donald Trump started wreaking havoc, even more havoc on the earth. We were already facing, the climate crisis and so many serious problems, Flint and others. But if people are interested in the Delaware Riverkeeper Network and joining us in our advocacy and litigation for the Delaware River, the organization is Delaware, or the website is www.delawareriverkeeper.org. And of course, if you go on any social media platform and type in Delaware Riverkeeper, you will find us. If you are interested in advancing the idea of a green amendment in your state, or you want to get involved in what may already be happening in your state, if you go to forthegenerations.org, you can learn about the Green Amendment movement, and you can also find out what is happening in your state and how to get involved. Or if there isn't yet a page for your state, it means that there isn't anything really active happening. And maybe you'll be the person that'll get in touch with me because of this podcast, and we'll work together to make it happen. We have a really powerful New Mexico Green Amendment movement, one of the most powerful Green Amendment movements happening across the nation. And it all happened because somebody heard me on a radio show and they picked up the phone and they called me. I really believe in this pathway for environmental protection. I take it very personally. So if you call or you email, chances are you'll be hearing back from me personally.
Fantastic.
That would be awesome. who wouldn't want to hear back from you? You're amazing.
Well,
mean,
you're very kind.
Well, it's the truth. And just to know that we're being protected by people, by you and people like you who are trying their best during these most challenging times. I mean, we're fighting a pandemic of extraordinary proportions where we're hopefully on the cusp of a new administration that will make the EPA good again, and make for a better understanding and get people to work on environmental issues. I mean, he put together a team already that seems to be, a good solid group of people. So we are fingers crossed on all of that
Yeah.
to see what's going to happen, and that should be hopefully in 2021 we'll get that going again, because we certainly had 4 years of just scariness.
Yeah, I mean, we've had 4 years of chaos. I am totally with you. But the one thing that I really like to, help people remember or understand, even if you 100% implement all of our environmental protection laws exactly as they're written, you will still have people drinking contaminated water, breathing polluted air. You will still experience rampant environmental racism with indigenous communities and communities of color being intentionally sacrificed in terms of their healthy environments in order to protect other richer, whiter people elsewhere. You will still have, toxic spills onto the landscape that where the responsible parties are not forced to clean it up fully or fairly or properly. We will still be having these devastating emissions exacerbating the climate crisis, devastatingly so. So we really need to do more than just get better people into office to implement the laws as they're written. We need to fundamentally transform how we think about and protect the environment and environmental rights here in the United States of America. And that's what Green Amendments for the Generations is all about. And at the Delaware Riverkeeper Network, where we had that powerful success in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and we are helping to lead this idea in the other watershed states, New York, New Jersey, and Delaware. We are really trying to move that ball in a transformational way, not just get the best we can out of what we already have on the books, because that is just not good enough.
Yeah, Maya, I hate to say this, and Maxine, I hate to say it, but our time is up.
Well, our time is up.
Our time is up.
So,
But,
Maya, you are really doing a wonderful job. You're making a difference. People need to go to the Delaware Riverkeeper site and the Green Amendment. I mean, get your book also. It really lays it out. And I hope to have you back with the status on New Mexico and other states, and just keep doing. You're one of the people who are prized in this world. And thank you so much.
And if you have any activity that you'd like the public to know, we're going to feature a part of our show, which we're going to promote different organizations. So please keep Maxine informed or me informed of something that you would like to promote.
Fantastic. I will do that. And I really treasure you both, because without leaders like you helping to give voice to all the important issues facing our communities and our environment and helping people to get involved in this transformational change, right, we would be so far behind the 8 ball. So I really treasure you, and thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. But I love this new world now. I and Maxine can do with, the Zoom, we could reach millions of people. It's a fantastic.
Anytime.
It's a
One, we're going to hope for that very soon. But in the meantime, we will get to as many as we can and get the information out to those who want to act. We want to get people to act. So thanks again for being on.
Thanks again. And we will speak. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
We will speak again.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, Maya. Bye-bye.